So I was thinking about my ride down. I live about 45 minutes or so from here, my apartment, a couple of towns up. And last night I was talking with a neighbor that came out of the house. She lives in the town up one more, higher elevation. It's kind of the highest point, I think, outside of Mount Greylock. It's another high point in Peru, Mass. And there's a place there that I came across on the internet when I was looking around for fallout shelters. And it's now it's an AT&T relay station. But originally, back in the 60s or 50s, it was built as a fallout shelter for the state of Massachusetts. And it has a bunker under it, and it was a well-stocked bunker, obviously for probably government officials and their families from Pittsfield, so that the governor may have some. I don't know. I don't know what it was, whether it was for the mayor or who it was really for. One never knows. It's interesting is that the town doesn't really know that it's there, because she grew up in that town and she didn't know that it was a fallout shelter. So you tend to wonder, who knew? So I'm thinking like maybe 40 years ago when I was in college, I went to Wentworth Institute of Technology for electronics. And I had participated in the civilian defense project, which was to basically learn to be a manager of a fallout shelter. So if there was some kind of nuclear disaster, I would be qualified to run a fallout shelter. So I went to Andover, Mass, into their fallout shelter in the bottom of their school, and they set it up, and they basically locked up a whole bunch of people, and we had to live off of rations and these stale crackers, and they would put radiation in samples near walls so that we could detect a radiation problem. We had to decide whether to let people in, if they knocked on the door after the door was sealed. We had about 10 square feet considered our living area or our sleeping area. I'm a notorious snorer. I basically stop breathing when I'm sleeping, and I was snoring one night, and this guy rolled over and he said, "If you don't stop snoring, I'm gonna stick a knife in your neck." And so I guess I stopped snoring because I didn't go back to sleep. But I'm technically a certified fallout shelter manager if the civilian defense department still existed. But unfortunately it doesn't. And it's an interesting thing, because back in the day, 30 years ago, all public buildings were all built with fallout shelters. They all had emergency supplies, they had cots, they had blankets, they had food, they had water, they probably had a generator. They had all that stuff stored away, in a cupboard in the town hall, the schools. You'd go into the school and you see that little sign on the wall, fallout shelter. The stuff was there just in case something were to happen. But now they build everything on slabs. There's no more basements in schools. There's no more basements in town halls. Everything's all, they just stopped doing it. At that time it was in fear of a nuclear disaster. But, how often does things happen now? The weather, tornadoes, hurricanes. Hurricanes never used to come inland. We got hit with Irene, came in and came up the coast and cut inland. They called it a tropical storm, but hey, we know better. That was a hurricane, and it wiped out so many towns through this town or this neighborhood, the Berkshires. It went right up into Vermont, which is what 3 states from the ocean, and it caused severe damage up there. And, you know, no one's building fallout shelters in their town to support emergency services. They expect the National Guard to show up on your doorstep and help you out. And where's most of our National Guard? Over the seas. You know, it's I don't know if it's most, but you know, that's what you have a choice. What do you need to do to survive if something were to happen? You know, maybe you're not going to have satellite to watch The Simpsons on, so you can stay up to date. But you know, what do you need to survive? Enough food for a couple weeks or a month to get you by for a while until things calm down. You know, there's no back room to the supermarket. Whatever's on that shelf is what's available to you, and it's up to you to get to it before someone else does. I mean that's reality. You know, I'm building in storerooms here so that I can have some stockpile. I have access to a larger stockpile. I have an access to gardens and, you know, well water, and you know, that's what, you know, that's, you know, it's just for me, but I know my kids are going to show up. They show up now at my apartment to go, you know, to get a few things. So it's going to happen. You know, it happens to everybody. If it doesn't happen as some crazy thing from the government or another government doing it to you, it's going to be the weather. You know, if you can have batteries for flashlights in case the power goes off for 10 minutes, you can have a few more things. You know, what do you need? You know, I used to live in Shirley, Mass, and when they built their new town hall, they put a fallout shelter in the basement. Now, granted, they're right next to a army base, but a technically decommissioned army base, which is, the technically is in big quotes, but you know, they built one in their basement so they have emergency supplies on hand. I mean, and they did that as a town, but how many towns do it? You know, just how many towns out there in my huge list of people on my YouTube? I look at people and they have, you know, thousands of people on, you know, 100,000, you know, 1 million subscribers. I have my faithful 67. Yep, I'm happy for you guys. And that's it for now. Ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta.